Welcome to Pro Talks. We're here again discussing different things that'll be a resource for you, help you in your churches and ministries. And so today we're going to be talking about safeguards and accountability. So important. And so I wanted to tell you a few statistics. Now, this is going to be a little bit shocking to you, to most of you, but here's some statistics that I have found on accountability and embezzlement, because that's what happens when you don't have accountability and safeguards in line. In the first half of 2019, more than 68 billion, that's with a B, billion, was stolen in churches related to financial fraud. Can you imagine that? 68 billion. During the same time period, churches spent 60 billion in worldwide missions. We say we don't have money for missions, but if we would just put in safeguards and accountability, we could pay missions. Think about that. Researchers are expecting financial fraud to reach 80 billion by the year 2025. That is really sad. And to take action and keeping the Lord's money in the Lord's work. And that's what we're going to talk about today, because it's a serious conversation, and I want people to be aware. One other thing about those statistics, think about this: 80% of all embezzlement is never reported, ever. And so this talk is very important. Very important to put accountability and safeguards in. And so we're going to go over some different things that may end up helping you to put those safeguards in. First of all, I'd like to talk about bookkeepers, people, treasurers. If your church does not have an accounting policy, they need one. Your treasurer and your bookkeeper should be protected. Listen, they should never be accused of something, and I'm sure you've got great people working for you, and people don't start out to try to embezzle money. They get in trouble. The devil tempts. And so what I'm trying to say is you need to put an accounting policy, a safeguard in. Accounting policies are super important. We're going to talk about a couple of those things today. Also, a two-person rule. Two-person rule, and Hannah's going to elaborate on this. She's going to give us some tips about how to streamline, but always have two people counting offering. Never any money should ever be counted with just one person, or not two people in the room. And so there's a lot of accountability procedures that need to be taken and done. And so those are, and also audits and things. And I'll talk a little bit about that at the end of our talk today. But I wanted Hannah to go over just some simple things that you could do to make people accountable, puts up safeguards, it keeps everybody clean, and then people won't be accused of something they haven't done. And so I know we've done this for a lot of our clients, and we've helped them put these procedures in place, and it gives them, like we say, peace of mind. We're always trying to give you peace of mind and streamline all the different things that can help your church and ministry. And not only that, you're going to find out that when you do those accountabilities, it's amazing, isn't it, Hannah, that their contributions and your tithe and offering income always increases. Always does. Not that someone's taking it, but God blesses accountability. So, Hannah, I'm going to let you go over just a couple of tips that may help somebody today about preventing things from embezzlement, bringing accountability. And so share a few of those helpful tips we've got today.
All right, a lot of things that we've talked about with our clients and dealing with the contributions, dealing with the money is a lot of times your ushers are the ones gathering it. And if you're a financial person, sometimes your treasurer can go out, there may be one of the ushers, or they can meet the ushers. And usually I would always suggest having a safe somewhere. We have a safe where the ushers, it has a top drop, and so they can just drop it right in and it automatically locks it into the safe. They can't take it back out because it's all from the top. They don't even have keys to the actual drawer, but the ushers can put it all in that way. If you have your usher meeting, or if you have your treasurer meeting the usher, then you may have one that's just locked and they can open with someone else, put it all in. But you definitely want to, as soon as the money's collected, you want to get it in a locked safe or office or box, a locked bag, something to keep it all together until you have the time to count. A lot of times it's not counted until after the service, or it's counted on Monday mornings, which is fine. either way, but you definitely want to keep it locked up. As soon as it's collected, just go ahead and put it in the safe. If you don't have a safe, I would strongly suggest getting a safe.
Right.
But that's definitely something. That way, when whoever's counting it, then they have their second person. They'll go to the safe together. They'll collect the money, and then they're able to sit down and to count it. You never want to take the money off of church property before it's been counted. Only when it's ready to go to the bank do you want to take it. Never take it home. Never take it elsewhere to count. Just have a designated room. Usually that's where the safe's located, and the money's counted with two people right there. And you definitely want to have everything accounted for. If you're two people that count the money, it may be your treasurer and someone that counts the money on Sunday evenings, and it's not the bookkeeper that's entering the contributions. They're making their notes so that the bookkeeper can take care of it the next day. But you definitely want to have a batch report or a deposit report. And if you don't happen to have one of these, what I mean by this deposit report is at the top, they'll give a total of all their cash that they collected. They'll count all that cash. They'll enter in the total of all the checks that they've collected, and then they total the two together. And then it has a separate place on the same report that where they list every designation. How much came in for tithes and offerings? How much came in for the missions? How much came in for the building fund? How much came in for whatever you're collecting for? And then that totals. And if those two totals meet, then that's another way to let the treasurers or the two people counting know that they're balanced. If they don't balance right then they know they need to go back and double check something. So it's a good safeguard to have where they fill that out along with their notes of who gave what. And that way the bookkeeper has that when they take the deposit to the bank, their receipt can be stapled to that deposit report, and the receipt matches the deposit report. That way there's no question about where anything went. You have two people, they can give their signatures on the top of the report. And this is just a good record to have every week with your deposit receipts stapled to it. That way there's just never any question. If you don't have a report like that and you may need one, feel free to reach out to info@prosupportstaff.com. We'll gladly give you, we have one that's already set up that we've given many of our clients. But if you'd like one to have just on hand or just to kind of see how it works, feel free to reach out and we'll definitely send that to you. Another way is a lot of times if it's counted on Monday, it's usually counted by the bookkeeper and someone else, and usually they're entering it into their software to record all the contributions. And if they're doing that, then the software usually spits out what is called a batch report, or it may call a deposit report, and it gives the same function of the other report that I just talked about. And that's something that they can print out. It's usually a one-page summary. It gives how much cash there was, how much check there was, and all the designations, and again, the two totals should equal. If not, then they know they need to recheck something before they take it to the bank. So those two reports are definitely something you want to do before you take your money to the bank, because it's a lot harder to figure out a discrepancy once the money's been taken to the bank, and sometimes it's just a check being miswritten with the legal line and the amount or something like that. But it's always a good double check to have in place before you do it. You definitely want to record every penny that's been given, even the loose cash. When I talk about that, I especially mean the loose cash. And a lot of people, they write out who gave the checks, who gave what, if they have envelopes, if there's cash in there, they know. But when it comes to loose cash, a lot of times it's not always on the deposit report or the batch report. And if you're using a software, I would highly recommend you have all of your donors listed. I usually create a donor that says cash offering or loose cash or cash and check offering, and that's where you can put all the cash, and you would put it to tithes and offerings. But that way your batch report truly balances to what you're taking to the bank. You never want there to be a question in case something happened and you weren't there the next week and someone else came in. You want them to be able to clearly see what it is you do and how every penny is accounted for. You just don't want, if there's a question about if the amounts don't match, it just tends to bring up questions. And you never want to cause questions about yourself. A lot of times the loose cash is all being taken to the bank, but there's just no record of it. So it's always good to just go ahead and put that. If you're doing it by paper, you can always record the cash and check by that as well. But you want to record everything that's there. And then again, I would deposit your funds every week. Once you count it, once you've entered, but make sure you take the funds every week. Some people like to hold it a couple weeks, or just go ahead and put it in the bank. Even if you have a safe, there may be some rare exception, but it's always good practice to just count the money, make sure you're balanced, and then take it to the bank and just get it into the bank. So there's no question about maybe if something happened later on and it didn't, you don't want to be like, well, it sat here for a week. Just go ahead and put it in the bank and make sure that it's there. And those are just some helpful tips, that you have two people doing those processes together, and it just keeps everything balanced. And a lot of times if you use that deposit report, you know you're good to go before you ever take it to the bank.
Right. Well, those are some great tips because, in so many things, and Hannah and I know this, so many things happen when deposits sit in a safe. Somebody will come up and the pastor says, hey, I need to go get some glue for the preschool today, or the school teacher, and they'll take it right out of the offering. That is not the proper way to do it. That you definitely need to keep your payables separate than your cash. And so those deposits need to match exactly what came in. And so we've had a lot of churches that have done that and thought, well, what's the big deal? We just put the receipt back in. But that is commingling, and you don't want to do that. It's just not a good procedure, and it's not the best practices. So all the different things that we mentioned, safe, two people accountability, making sure that you're balanced all the way with your reports. That way, anybody, when the financial committee looks at the reports, they see everything is balanced. Loose cash is a big deal. You don't want to ever tempt anybody to take loose cash. So if you're accounting for it, just like Hannah said, it sure makes it a lot better. These statistics I read are very, very sad. And these are happening in our churches. That is the $68 billion is a statistic from churches only, not businesses. And so what I'm trying to say is the accountability needs to be there, because this is God's money and we want to do it the right way. And not only that, don't put your bookkeeper in that kind of position, or your treasurer, or a deacon, because if something ends up missing and they did not take it, they're innocent, they're still going to be accused, and doubt will come in. And so don't do that to your people. And the best way to do that is make sure you have accounting policy. We have a template of an accounting policy. It doesn't have to be complicated. It just needs to say, what are the accounting procedures? How do we collect the offering? How do we deposit it in the bank? Those kind of things. And it's really, really good. And by the way, most insurance companies want you to have a policy intact, and it will lower your premium sometime for your liability. And so there's all those kind of things that work together. But make sure you do that. And one other thing I just wanted to mention is audits. A lot of churches don't have any audits because they don't have to do a tax return. They don't have to report to the government, so to speak. But you need to at least get a compilation or a review. Our pro support staff, we don't do full-blown audits. Usually those are very, very, very expensive. Anywhere between $8,000 and $10,000. It's very, very expensive to have those things done. And a church really doesn't have to do that to that extent. But I do suggest at least a review or a compilation. And what that is that's our company will go behind, review the transactions from the year. We do it on a month. We have a monthly package that is very well, that puts an outside third-party source giving you accountability. So when you go before your church, or you go in a deacon's meeting, or maybe a businessman or someone that's very wealthy in your congregation wants to give, and they want to see some reports or they want some figures, you can say that a certified third-party accounting company has reviewed those and they are accurate and balanced. And so that gives you a protection, and people will give to churches that do it the right way. And so we have packages available just every month, even is pretty low, or we have where we can reconcile behind you. But we did that and put that service in place because it's been so invaluable. I cannot tell you, out of the 60, 70 clients that we've done so far, how many times we found something. Even if it wasn't intentional, we saved them so much money by catching things that they look at every day and didn't realize. Another thing, and that's for another pro talk, but we'll talk about credit cards and fraud. There's huge fraud and embezzlement on credit cards alone. There's some solutions that we have to that we can help you streamline. And so, but anyway, that's a lot of information, but put your accountability in place. Put your safeguards in place. Let God bless you. Bible says do everything decently in order, and I know that's what we're all about. So until next Tuesday, we'll see you I hope this was informative to you, and thank you for attending Pro Talks today.